The Blue Jackets are one of 3 teams in the NHL to not win 3 games in a row yet this season. Can they do it tonight against the Florida Panthers? And also, what the heck is going on with the Florida Panthers? We've got Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers here to explain what is going on with his weird, inconsistent team. That's all coming up today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, game previews, game recaps, prospect talk, interviews, all of the above and more about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Even though it's around about lunchtime as I record this, I appreciate you for making it your first listen, your second listen, third, fourth, last listen. Whenever you're listening to this, thank you for doing so. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. You're never going to have to get behind a paywall for a Locked On product. And today, we're doing a squadcast. We've got Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers to come and talk all about the inconsistent December that his team is having, the injury luck. We're going to talk a little bit about defense versus goaltending for the Blue Jackets, and we're going to have some fun, talk about some keys to tonight's game, and some predictions as well. So I'm just going to get right into my conversation with Armando. So it feels like it's only been 5 minutes since the last time the Blue Jackets and the Panthers played, but here we are again. Columbus is in Florida for the week. They're going to be facing the Panthers. They're going to be facing Tampa Bay. Should be 2 tough games. And so I thought, let's see how the Panthers are doing. Let's get friend of the show, my wonderful colleague here at Locked On, Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers, to try and tell us what is going on with the Panthers. Because I just checked what their last few games have looked like, and it's been, like I said off stream, it's been a little bit of a rough December for the Panthers so far. So let's start with that. What's up with that, Armando?
Up and down, roller coaster. All you name it. Anything that has sometimes gone wrong with the Panthers have, and then with sometimes for teams that you go into thinking that you should win, sometimes it's an encouraging sign when you goals that happen with opposing teams. I mean, let's just talk about since the last matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Panthers record is 4-4-2 with a goal differential of exactly 0. And that was really the start of Sergei Bobrovsky's poor play and Spencer Knight taking the crease for the Panthers. I mean, since that game between the Florida Panthers and the Columbus Blue Jackets, where the Florida Panthers had 94 shot attempts, but where we described it last time as throwing muffins right at Daniil Tarasov. But I mean, you get a win against a Boston Bruins team with Spencer Knight between the pipes, 3 power play goals for the Panthers, 2 straight games with a blown third period lead between the St. Louis Blues, Edmonton Oilers. The Calgary game, they don't show up at all in Matthew Tkachuk's return. 2 straight games of 5-1 wins over Vancouver and Seattle. But then the Seattle game on December 3rd was really when the injury bug started happening for the Florida Panthers as well. Patrik Hornqvist gets a concussion, so does Radko Gudas. Patrik Hornqvist going on LTIR. Alexander Barkov misses the entirety of their Western Canadian trip due to what was reported that he had pneumonia. And just the inconsistent play of the goaltending. But Sergei Bobrovsky has started the last 3 games for the Panthers due to Spencer Knight being ill. Spencer Knight did get pulled from their last game of their road trip against the Winnipeg Jets. It seemed like for the Panthers due to the injury bug coming at that point in the road trip, and then an encouraging win against the Detroit Red Wings, which Detroit looked like a game from last season, from President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers, and then just still unable to figure out the Tampa Bay Lightning, which their game was kind of like last year too, where the Tampa Bay Lightning were consistently getting in shooting lanes and passing lanes, and it resulting in not even putting any amount of pressure on Andre Vasilevsky. And then we had a very animated Paul Maurice on Sunday on a rare second period timeout where the Florida Panthers were just trapped in their own zone for Sergei Bobrovsky. And Sergei Bobrovsky in these last 3 games has just been he hasn't been the least of the Panthers' issues, though there's been a lot of goals given up, but he hasn't been the one for the Cats.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like Sergei Bobrovsky started off the season pretty well. I remember checking the stats and being like, "Oh, hey, this looks a little bit like the Bob that we remember in Columbus." And it seems like he's just kind of, again, inconsistent feels like the word. Some nights he shows up and you get Vezina Bob, and then some nights you get like 2020 Bob, where he couldn't stop a beach ball. We can talk about the game specifically a little bit later on. Do you expect Spencer Knight to start tonight, or is this going to be another Bobrovsky versus his old team?
I believe it's going to be another Bobrovsky versus his old team because Spencer Knight's missed the last few games with an illness. As we are recording 33 a.m., Spencer Knight is on the ice for their third goalie. Alex Laine was still on the ice for the Panthers. They're carrying 3 goalies at the moment. So it tells me he's going to miss at least one more game for the Panthers sometime on Wednesday or Thursday. Alex Laine is gonna be placed on waivers to at least bring a for the Panthers. So right now they're carrying the 3 goalies right now for the Panthers. So I'm gonna expect Sergei Bobrovsky to be between us tonight. And they gotta see what they got in their 10 minutes. See if past this season they can still keep them, especially with the cap going up. The owners are actually in Florida. Their meetings with the commissioner. So right now they're going to be discussing salary cap, and the Panthers got to get an indication of whether it's going to hinder them in the future or whether it's they're going to have to try to find a trade partner, which Bobrovsky's no move clause doesn't become a modified no trade clause until July 1, 2024. So there's still over a year between when they can move him without his permission, at least to half the teams in the NHL.
Yeah, like that. I love Sergei Bobrovsky. I loved every minute that he was in Columbus. I was really upset when he left. That contract was bad when he signed it.
Mm-hmm.
And just feels like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I do feel bad for him because I feel like he was never going to live up to that contract. And that's kind of I was when I see guys get that free agency money, I'm like, yeah, go get that free agency paycheck. But I feel like how often do you see a free agent signing work out and be like, man, that was a bargain, you know? So I feel bad for Bobrovsky, but I want to talk about a newcomer to the team. Obviously last time we spoke, it was kind of a post game thing, so we didn't really get a chance to dig into newcomers to the team, things like that. I want to talk about Matthew Tkachuk, who had obviously you said he didn't really show up against his old team. Johnny Gaudreau kind of did the same thing actually against Calgary a couple of nights ago. He has 5 points in his last 5 games. I'm always expecting big things from Matthew Tkachuk, I think. How has he looked so far in the season, and are we expecting a big night from Tkachuk tonight?
Crazy to think that Matthew Tkachuk has 5 points in the last 5 games, and he had in the last 2. Crazy to think with Matthew Tkachuk. But outside of the 2 games, he's had multiple multi-point games on the season for the Panthers and has the runs through 25 games in Florida Panthers history, passing Pavel Bure and Jonathan Huberdeau prior to that. So it's just been a treat. It's despite the up and downs for the Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk has just been a continuous treat at 24 years old. I mean, with Jonathan Huberdeau setting the record for 115 points for the Panthers last season, I mean, it's crazy how maybe that could be broken in just one season for Matthew Tkachuk and just a trade that has worked out individually. Though the team success for the Panthers, there's still we knew this was going to be a step back season. We knew that this was going to be a change in what the Panthers were going to do. Of course, losing Mackenzie Weegar, that's proved to be a bigger loss. And the Panthers just recently they have been trapped in the neutral zone that have been creating odd man rushes and then a hard time getting out of their. I mean, the power play and the special teams is up and down. That's really what sometimes you'll have a few games in a row where you have a power play goal, and then in the case of the game against the Boston Bruins, you'll have three in one. It's just been that up and down, and of course, Anthony Duclair's almost back, but I don't really have too many expectations on an Achilles injury coming back from that, because that's a really hard one to come back from. And also missed a little bit of time. He missed time towards the end of that road trip as well, and earlier in the show. And so it's been a little up and down, and those injuries aren't necessarily an excuse. Now I wonder what, and I talked about this on yesterday's show. I wonder what Paul Maurice being animated on the Panthers bench is going to do for this team going forward, because they had a day off yesterday. Now, how are their minds refreshed going into this matchup? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's gonna be a really interesting game, I think. For both teams. Obviously, the Blue Jackets are looking to continue their win. Is it win streak when you've only won 2 games in a row? I don't know, but I'll take it. They're going to make it 3 in a row. Obviously, the Panthers are looking to rebound off 2 back-to-back losses. In a minute, we're going to flip the script. We're going to talk a little bit about how the Blue Jackets have played since the last time the Panthers have faced them. But first, I've got to tell you about one of our sponsors, which is BetOnline, because BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college ball season, basketball, the World Cup. They've got it all at betonline.net. I know America is no longer in the World Cup. England is no longer in the World Cup. But if you wanted to put some money on, I don't know, Morocco winning it all, then maybe that might be something that you could do at betonline.net. And you could put some money on tonight's game as well. Panthers are probably the favorites, but hey, if you feel like an underdog bet, the Blue Jackets might not be the worst option. They are the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today. That is betonline.net. Use your laptop or mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And where the second segment is going to start, I think, is probably with Armando asking exactly the same question that I asked him 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I'm seeing, since their matchup on November 21st, the Blue Jackets are 3-5-1, and some of the wins include at Winnipeg, Calgary, and LA. And I saw a stat yesterday via Alex Slemp of Full Press NHL. There's only 3 teams in the NHL that haven't gone on a 3-game win streak this season: Panthers, Blue Jackets, Anaheim Ducks. Those are the 3 teams. And tonight could be the night where it could come down to 2. So a few things are on the line. Of course, seeing what has happened since, as far as players being back or players who are not there as of right now. Patrik Laine has been back, I've seen, and he's been over a point per game, playing on that second line, from according to Daily Faceoff as well. And then Johnny Gaudreau just being a treat. We spoke about Matthew Tkachuk. Despite the wins not coming together, Johnny Gaudreau, I'm seeing that he's having a very good individual season as well. But I'm seeing now that Jonas Korpisalo is on injury reserve, and now it seems that the Pipes are now back to what Elvis Merzlikins was. The numbers don't necessarily look good as far as last few weeks, because they've been in high-scoring affairs. I mean, even in their most recent win against the LA Kings, but even in that game against the Buffalo Sabres, where Tage Thompson went off, scoring those 5. But is it all on Merzlikins and Korpisalo, or how has the blue line looked as well for this Blue Jackets team? Because I see that they can score, but it's I see based on the stats that it's been really hard to defend.
Yeah, so the thing about the Blue Jackets, and this has been true for a while, for at least the past couple of seasons, is the Blue Jackets either get good goaltending or they get good defense. And they can't seem to have both in the same game. I will say, Merzlikins I thought was phenomenal against the Calgary Flames. Jonas Korpisalo played the first period, I believe made 11 of 11 saves, went down with an injury. Merzlikins started the second period, and then went on to make 19 of 20 saves in a 3-1 win over the Calgary Flames. So great individual performance from Merzlikins. And then you look at the game against the LA Kings, which, I mean, everyone scored. Everyone. It was not necessarily a good game for Elvis, I don't think. I think he made 33 of 39 saves, or 33 of 38 saves, excuse me, which is not terrible, but is not necessarily where you want him to be. The trouble is, like you mentioned, the defense is just not there. I think Elvis needs to be better, for sure, but when your defense is allowing, an average of 3 expected goals per game, then it's tough for any goalie to, not every goalie can be Igor Shesterkin, who I think faced a huge challenge last season where the Rangers were just terrible defensively and Igor Shesterkin bailed him out every single game. Elvis Merzlikins is a good goalie. I still believe in him as the goalie of the future. He is not Igor Shesterkin. So it's tough for him to turn up when the defense every single game. I mean, I looked it up. I've been doing some keeping up on the defensive numbers because it makes me laugh. I have to laugh because otherwise, what else can you do? The current average experience of a Blue Jackets defenseman is 179 games. And that is because Erik Gudbranson has played over 650 games. He is bringing that average way up. Let me just see if I can find the tweet again, because they have 2 defensemen that have over 200 games. So the current defensive crop right now, Gudbranson at 666, which I feel like he maybe should just leave it there. I feel like that's like he's peaked. Vladislav Gavrikov is at 230, and then it drops to Andrew Peak at 141. And then after that, Jake Christensen, 19 career NHL games, 1-9. Bjork, 13 NHL games. And Tim Bernie, 3 NHL games. Elvis needs to be better, but I'm also extremely unsurprised that he hasn't been, the numbers haven't been on his side, because and the young defensemen have been very good. I want to say, this is not me to be like, oh man, Tim Bernie, who's got 3 NHL games, has been terrible, because he's been really good. Marcus Bjork has also been really good. But when you've got when you've got half of your defense core has played under 20 NHL games, you're fighting a losing battle immediately. So it's tough to say, oh, Elvis needs to be better. Elvis is a victim of his defense. I think both are the answer. But I've seen real improvement from him over the past couple of games. I don't think he was very good against Calgary. I don't think he was terrible against LA. Buffalo happened. It's fine. We don't need to talk about it. I thought he was fine against Pittsburgh. He was actually pretty good against Pittsburgh right up until the end. It was 3-1, and then he had, I think, 33 saves at that point, and then they scored a 4-on-4 goal after the empty net attempt. Elvis decided he wasn't down with an empty netter and he just kind of threw himself back across the ice. Puck ended up going in, so it counts as a goal on him. But I thought he's been in 3 of the last 4 games. I think he's been fine. And honestly, at this point, I will take league average goaltending from Elvis Merzlikins at this point.
Yeah, you talk about the inexperience of the blue line. Erik Gudbranson, former 3rd overall pick by the Florida Panthers, just has, like you said, he's peaked at for his ceiling for in the airing defenseman. And then you talk about Zach Werenski still being out for the rest of the season is still out as well. Jake Bean, who in a trade as well. that's just been it doesn't add to the defense core that's already inexperienced as it is for the Blue Jackets. But with Columbus, what when it comes to fitting into system, and also the young guys who are in there, like a Cole Sillinger, a Kent Johnson, as well, and even parts of the trade Laine and Dubois, which Jack Roslovic has also got on the score sheet as well. So maybe Columbus is going to end up winning that overall, but who are fitting into the system.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I actually talked about this with Harrison Lee of Locked On Jets very, very recently. Dubois has been phenomenal for the Jets, I think. Especially this season, he is just a complete monster on the ice. He's one of the NHL's true legitimate power forwards. I know everyone calls Matthew Tkachuk a power forward. I don't necessarily think I would, but Dubois plays in the NHL like I play NHL on the PlayStation. You know, just big goals, big hits. Like, he's pretty solid defensively, which was not always true. He's been really good for the Jets. However, he has been pretty vocal about not wanting to stay there past the end of this contract. His contract is up at the end of this season, I believe. He will be a restricted free agent, so the team still has control. But I think he wants to be somewhere else. Is that what's going to happen? Maybe. But when you look at how Patrik Laine has fitted into this team, like you said, he's been about a point per game since he come back from injury. He's got, I believe, 8 goals in 14 games this season, which is a 47 goal pace in a full 82 games. You look at Jack Roslovic, who I've been very critical of so far this season. He kind of responded to my continued negativity by having a 4-point night against the LA Kings. Two goals, 2 assists, 1 shorthanded goal, 1 power play goal. He had a really, really good game. Patrik Laine wants to be in Columbus. He has spoken extensively about how much he likes it there, how much his girlfriend likes it there, and how happy he is there. He had a really great moment it was the game against Winnipeg. He had a 2-goal night, and then afterwards they were like, "Hey, did you know that Columbus is the only team that you haven't scored against?" And he's like, "Yeah, I hope it stays that way. I don't want to score against Columbus. Like, I want to spend the rest of my career here." And like that plus obviously the whole Johnny Gaudreau thing. The concept of having players want to stay in Columbus, to me, is almost as important as their on-ice potential or their on-ice experience. I think Dubois has been better, more consistent for the Jets than either Laine or Roslovic have for the Blue Jackets. But to me, having Patrik Laine for the next, I believe it's 3 seasons at least after this, versus Dubois maybe going to Montreal, maybe going somewhere else, like doesn't want to be a Jet. Maybe he'll change his mind. But I think after this season, we'll know who won that trade, and I do think it's going to be Columbus, if only because we will still have both of the players that were involved in that trade, and Dubois might be a Canadian by that point.
Yeah, and Patrik Laine can score with the best of them. A full 82 game season, maybe Richard winner. So maybe if a healthy season for him. But we're going to transition to number 3, where we're going to discuss the keys to the game for both the Florida Panthers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. So stay right here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Jackets. Segment number 3 here on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets. I have Jay Forster here of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets. So keys to the game for the Panthers for me is, after seeing the last 2 games being a two-game losing streak of try to get open shooting lanes and to try to get open passing lanes. I don't know if it's a one-off with Tampa Bay, because the size of the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're they're one of the heaviest teams in the NHL using sticks, which plays a factor for them. But just continue to try to connect clean passes and not force anything, especially in the neutral zone. And we've seen Gus Forsling on multiple games in a row just having shifts of 2+ minutes in the Panther zone without being able to get another body on the ice. And for Panthers, seeing that the Blue Jackets, as far as goals against and penalty kill of power is just to try to go perfect on the penalty kill, because the defense has been issue as of late for the Panthers. It really an issue in the beginning, but try to go at least 3 for 4 on the penalty kill. Hopefully perfect on the PK. So that's the key for me in this game.
Yeah, I mean that's the key for the Panthers. I think is the Blue Jackets penalty kill it started off really strong. It's been a little bit leaky as of late. So we would like that to stop, obviously. The key for the Panthers as well, for me, I think, is probably going to be just pucks on net, which is such a simple, stupid, cliched thing. Like, every time I hear someone say that on a broadcast, I'm like, duh, obviously. But the Blue Jackets' goaltending has been shaky. I would expect Elvis Merzlikins to start tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Tarasov starts. He played the last game against the Panthers and played well. But if they really want Merzlikins out of this slump, he's got to play. He's not going to fix the issues that are occurring on the bench. So just shoot at him. Get as many shots as you can. I know that we talked about this last time. Obviously, 96 shot attempt against for the Blue Jackets. The thing for me is going to be, I think, goals, offense. We've seen this before. The Blue Jackets, if they can get into a scoring race with the Panthers, like, that might not be the worst thing. We saw it with LA. We've seen it with a couple of other teams this season. Johnny Gaudreau had 3 points against LA. Patrik Laine had 3 points against LA. Like, if those two guys can get it rolling early, then that's good news for the Blue Jackets. They're on separate lines at the minute, which I don't necessarily agree with all the way. I think you're limiting the effectiveness of your other players. If you have Johnny Gaudreau playing 20 minutes a night on one line, Patrik Laine playing 20 minutes a night on another line, then that means that you've got to split the remaining 20 minutes between your third and fourth lines. I don't know how conducive that is to developing your young players, but that is a whole other conversation for another podcast. I think that's the big key for me, though, to just kind of wrap back around to that is you need your stars to score. You need Johnny Gaudreau to come out hot. You need Patrik Laine to continue this blistering pace that he's setting. If we can get, a 3-assist night from Johnny Gaudreau and a 2 goals from Patrik Laine, like, I think it's going to be tough for any team to stand up against when those two guys are on. I think that's it reminds me very much of maybe not quite the same, but you look at, for example, what Crosby and Malkin did in Pittsburgh for so long. You avoid the Crosby line. Oh, bad luck. You're up against Evgeny Malkin. Similar thing in Chicago with Taves and Kane. Oh, you avoid the Patrick Kane line? Cool. Now you have to defend against Jonathan Taves. And I think splitting those two guys up, while I don't necessarily agree with it, I think is going to give other teams fits, because either you have to Sasha Barkov is not going to be playing tonight, correct? He's still...
He's back. He came.
So okay,
he came back on Thursday.
Okay, perfect. So, which line do you give to Barkov to deal with? Because the other line. So you say, okay, Patrik Laine is hot. We'll put Sasha Barkov on like, we'll match those two guys up. Cool. That gives Johnny Gaudreau like a world of space. Who do you match up against Johnny Gaudreau? So that, I think, is going to be interesting for the Panthers to figure out how they're going to defend against two elite wingers like that.
Mm-hmm. And with the Panthers being the home team, they of course get the last change, so it helps them with their matchups. I mean, and of course think about this matchup before thinking about the previous one with just the amount of perimeter shots that the Panthers had and not getting in front of the net. Trying the natural stat trick from, but just remembering the the poor play on special teams, not only giving up a power play goal but giving up a shorthanded goal as well. It two power play goals actually, and that's been really for a team that's like 30th on the power play. So you give up more than one, you're not in a good position. And the thing is, getting out to an early lead for the Panthers, because they haven't won a single game this season one game this season where their opponents score first. And it's just getting in the slot. And even though Matthew Tkachuk had a tip in goal the last go round, it's also gotta continue to start with him getting in front of the net as well. Patrick Hornquist is still on LTIR. He's going to be out at least until 29th. So you got to get a Sam Reinhart in the low slot as well. That's really what I think the Panthers need to do. Is just and the captain. I don't know he's still feeling or how much better he's feeling. He's not gonna disclose that. He doesn't owe us anything when it comes to that. But the captain's gotta take over. And Aaron Ekblad, even though he's regressed this season since coming back from his groin injury, it hasn't been well on the ice. He had a -7 weekend between their game against the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Seattle Kraken. So it hasn't been a good weekend. It hasn't been a good season for Aaron Ekblad. So for Aaron Ekblad, it's about just continuing to close his gaps and be in the power play, just trying to be one time it from the left side, because he was super effective when healthy seasons ago. So looking at those guys to just continue to make Elvis Merzlikins uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Let's wrap this up with a little bit of fun. Predictions. Who is going to open the scoring for the Florida Panthers, and what is the final score going to be?
Carter Verhaeghe is going to be my guy to score. He's been the leading goal scorer all season. He's just been incredible for the Panthers. I mean, I believe we might see Sasha Barkov back on that line, because when coming back from injury, we saw Sam Bennett with Tkachuk and Verhaeghe. But I think after a little bit of a line change on over the weekend, we very well might see Sasha Barkov back on that line with Verhaeghe. So I'm going to say that Carter Verhaeghe is the guy who scores first, and I'm going to say a 4-2 win for the Panthers at home. This is an ESPN Plus exclusive game, so don't forget that if you're local to the area of Florida or Columbus, that ESPN Plus is your place to get it. Mike Monaco will be on the call along with Brian Boucher and Dom Moore for this matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. So who is your first scorer for the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Man, every time I make a prediction like this, someone really random scores. But you know what? I'm gonna go with the hot hand. Patrik Laine is gonna open the scoring for this team. I hate predicting a final score, because I think I think I've gotten it right once this season in like 25 games of making a prediction. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna say a 4-2 win for the Blue Jackets. I think looking at the goaltending matchup, I don't know. I think Bobrovsky struggles against his former team. And I think that the smart thing to do is to bet against him, as much as it pains me to do so. I think when you're like, he didn't play well against Philadelphia when he was in Columbus, so it seems to be just kind of a thing for him. But yeah, I'm gonna go 4-2 to the Blue Jackets, and I think that's gonna wrap up this special pregame squadcast of Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Panthers. So for anyone who wants to catch up on Bobrovsky, anyone who wants to catch up on the Panthers, where can people find you and your show?
They can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA. LA Panthers, and they'll see me live tweet throughout the game, and not only that, but all things regarding the South Florida sports scene. So they can follow me there. And how about
And
you for my listeners?
And you can find me at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you want to follow the show, you can do that wherever you can find Locked On Panthers. We're on YouTube. We're on every podcasting app of choice. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Panthers your first listen of the day every day. I super appreciate it. Armando super appreciates it. We're both very grateful to all of our listeners and watchers. Locked On Blue Jackets, Locked On Panthers is free and available everywhere. You're never going to have to get behind a paywall for either show. That is our promise to you. So enjoy the game tonight. I know I will, which feels like famous last words, but I'm going to enjoy this game. Hopefully Armando enjoys the game as well. And tomorrow I will be breaking down the game from Blue Jackets' point of view. Armando will be breaking down the game from a Florida Panthers point of view. So make sure you check out both of those shows at all of the places that we've just mentioned. And until then, make sure you stay locked on.